I want to talk water. This is what I am using for my horses for their water. These are 16-gallon buckets from Tractor Supply. I don't recommend the cheap ones from Walmart or from Target because they're thinner plastic. This is really tough plastic. It's going to hold up. If they kick it, it's not going to snap open and break. So when we first moved to New York, I got both of these girls when we lived in Missouri, and they were on my parents' property. My parents had 40 acres with a lot of ponds, just like how most Missouri farms are set up. So we didn't really ever have to worry about water. We just had to go out in the winter and break open the ponds. But then we moved here, and the first boarding barn I went to didn't have so much as a single water bucket for me to use. I was very displeased with that barn. But we didn't have really any money or anything, so I went out and bought this. This is all I could afford. And you can see the difference. The only problem with this is that on really hot days, that doesn't even last a full day. But, so I switched barns for a year, went to a different barn that was using really big, tall, what are they, like 70-gallon drums? The blue ones. And they cut off the tops. And what they were finding, because they're about as around as this, but they're really tall. And what they were finding is that A, they were extremely difficult to clean because you had to go so far down into it. And B, the horses would only drink about half the water in it because they could only reach down that far. And then they had to cut one even smaller because they had a mini, and obviously he couldn't reach the top of a drum that was way out there. So I had this bucket, and everybody all of a sudden was like, that's so amazing. They had a regular trough, one of those like Rubbermaid ones, but it sprung a leak and nobody ever bothered to fix it. I don't think anybody really knew how to fix it. So, I mean, these things are 16, 17, 18 bucks at Tractor Supply, depending on if they're on sale. And I've had this one for 2.5 years now. And it has withstood the winter and everything else. And the really awesome thing about this is horses of any size can use it. It really has a more natural position, drinking position for the horses versus a bigger, taller one. But I wasn't still sure on if I really preferred these or liked these a whole lot. And everybody at the barn really liked them because they were like, oh, you know, you can dump them right out, clean them, so easy. And I was like, yeah, but you know, I still think having one big trough would be super convenient because it's one trough, you only have to clean one thing, you only have to fill up one bucket, you know. But then I went back to that other barn because I had to. And there was a water trough there at this point. It had been in one of the other fields with other horses and who had left in the time that I had left. And so it was probably a big metal, about 200 pounds. It was on wheels. But, you know, you had to drain that thing at least 3/4 of the way before you could even attempt to tip it over. We had 4 horses in there, and they didn't drink it very fast. I don't think they actually liked it because it would heat up so much in the summer and be pretty warm. And then, you know, it would get super duper dirty in a day or two, and then all that water that you just put in there yesterday, you have to drain it all out so you can get in there and scrub it and clean it. And it really wasn't that nice, and I found that I really disliked it. And sure enough, we just went ahead and threw my one bucket in there, and the horses would all drink out of this bucket, and they wouldn't touch that metal water trough. So the horses even prefer this. And I find that I prefer it for the exact reasons everybody was saying. They are, you know, much smaller. It is very easy to pick this up and tip it if I need to dump it out and clean it. And I only have to go that far down to clean. I don't have to like dive into a big barrel. And it's a very natural, much more natural drinking position compared to a barrel. The only time, and I went and got two, so that because they'll only go through the one bucket about every day. If it's good, nice weather. If it's really hot though, one bucket's not quite enough with big old mammoths also there. So I went and bought another one just a couple days ago, 2 years later. And I think the only time I wouldn't use these buckets, because you can, kind of spread them out as you want to, so all the horses, if they don't get along, don't have to sit there and compete over the water. I mean, they're really, I really do prefer them. The only time I don't think I would use these is A, if I had an automatic watering system, which would be amazing, or B, maybe in the winter, because I'm not sure how well these would handle a heating system, a water heating system to keep them from freezing over, because they will freeze rock solid like that. So that might be the only time I use a bigger one, if I find that these can't handle a submersible heater or even a floating one. That might be when I decide to go and buy like a 60-gallon trough so that I could put a submersible heater in for over the winter. But in the summer, spring, and fall, without a doubt, these are my go-to. Much better than anything else. And I would suggest trying these out. Like I said, don't get the cheap ones, because if your horse kicks or itches or whatever else, they're just going to break. Or, any sort of inclement weather is going to change the durability. If it gets too hot, they might warp. If it gets too cold, they might just shatter. Spend the extra money on these ones from Tractor Supply, because they're super heavy duty. They're actually, you can't see it from far away, but if you look, they actually kind of look like wood panels. They have a nice little stamp in them, so they kind of look a little neat. Spend the extra money, get these, but I bet you anything, you're gonna love these over one big trough any day.